Olivia Smith is worth every single penny. Welcome back to the Arsenal Humans podcast with me, Luce. I hope you're all good. I'm honestly buzzing because the WSL is back, and you know what? We kicked off our campaign with a pretty good performance, pretty good result as well. I mean, I did watch the other games, which pretty good just to have the league back as a whole, and especially when, obviously, as an Arsenal fan, we're not seeing Arsenal men this week because they've been competing in their World Cup qualifiers, but it's been great to have the women back playing, not just friendlies, but now we're back playing in the league. It just adds more passion, it adds more fuel, and basically just overall competitive nature, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to get straight into warm-up poll, which is probably the quickest I've ever done the introduction, so I'm going to not waffle anymore and keep it as that quickness because I'm pretty impressed with myself that I didn't waffle. Anyways, the question obviously had to be to do with the WSL because, as I say, the Premier League wasn't happening this week. So I put out the question, were you happy with Slegers' starting 11? And this is because I just feel like it was such a different starting 11 to what we've seen recently. I know there are a lot of new signings. I know we've got a few injuries to key players like Leah Williamson, so we knew that backline would be different. But I felt like the whole pitch looked quite different. But I'm not complaining at all, and you know what, it looks like you guys aren't either because the poll results show that 86% of you were happy with it and 14% of you weren't, which obviously a massive majority were happy, and obviously I just tend to usually agree with you guys, and I've agreed once again because, yeah, 86% of you are correct in my opinion. I mean, to be fair, it's obviously so subjective because that 14% of you, some of you might be like, oh, I think Mead should have started, or just a one-off player. But as a whole, I don't think we can really complain with the starting 11. I mean, obviously, look at the result. Don't get me wrong, after the first, 20 minutes, I was a little bit nervous about it, thinking, oh no, have we messed up? Like, what's happened? Because obviously we went down 1-0 against London City Lionesses. But I'll get into more of the ins and outs of the games in a little bit. But just focusing purely on the starting 11, I mean, firstly, my observation when I was at the pub and I saw it at the Tollington ahead of the game, and then someone got it out on their phone and I was like, Kelly Smith. I was like, Kelly Smith's playing. And then I realised it was Chloe Kelly and Olivia Smith. But I was like, oh my God, what a blast from the past. Imagine if Kelly Smith actually played. That is Arsenal heritage. I mean, I mentioned in last week's episode about Thierry Henry and Kelly Smith meeting at the Emirates and how it was just so much Arsenal history and success just in two people. So I was like, oh my God, if she plays, we're winning the league, 100%. It wasn't her, obviously, but Chloe Kelly and Olivia Smith did not disappoint one bit. I was so happy to see Smith make her debut, and it was an unreal debut. I will chat about it a little bit more in a bit, but I just felt like the starting 11 was so good. A few people DM'd me in the comments off this poll, which obviously I put on my Instagram, which is luce.case, in case you want to vote in future polls for future episodes. But yeah, a few people, Bridget, one in particular, I'm going to shout her out. She said how she also liked when the subs were made as well. And I thought that was such a key point that I had to mention, because it's so true that not only was the starting 11 really strong, but the players we were bringing on, I loved how she started with Chloe Kelly, but then Beth Mead came on and was fighting for her place. Like, when I say she was fighting for her place, she literally was like, I deserve to be here. And damn right she deserves to be there. Then also you had Caitlin Ford obviously subbed on for Olivia Smith. Both had amazing performances. I think Slegers has such a hard decision that I'm not even mad if she changes this starting 11. Obviously it worked very well in this game, but next week we're against West Ham, so maybe she might switch it up a little bit. But I think we're in such a good position that Slegers has options that I'm actually just going to trust Slegers. I think whatever she decides, I'll be like, yeah, you've got this, girl, you've got this, because it seemed to work very well, even when a few people were questioning certain things. I think Katie Reid as well, she even got a versus caption, and I think that's when you know you've made it. When versus post you on their Instagram, you're like, okay, you're doing pretty good for yourself. And she deserved that at such a young age to step into Leah Williamson's boots ahead of Lotte Wieber-Moy, which some people might question, but I think she did a great job. So overall, yeah, I can't complain about Slegers' starting 11. I'm very excited to see how this maybe changes throughout the season and how players are constantly having to fight for their position in the squad, as they should, because if we want to be the best of the best, that competition starts in-house, that starts within the squad. So yeah, I'm very happy, I'm very excited, and I just, you know what, I'm going to stop waffling about the warm-up part and we're going to get straight into the main section of the podcast, because I want to chat all about that game, because it was Arsenal 4, London City Lionesses 1. Okay, so as I've done the last few weeks with the Premier League, obviously when the men have been playing, instead of talking about the whole game as a whole, there's so much you could talk about every single football game. There's 90 minutes or even more with extra time. I feel like I wanted to just break it down into 3 key learnings, which is exactly what I've done for the Arsenal London City Lionesses game. But before I actually do that, I went to this game and I just want to add a little bit of a main character, like a couple of minutes on this, because this is the first time I've ever had an Arsenal women's season ticket. I had the tickets where you'd go to the Emirates for like 4 or 5 games, or I've been to away games, I've been to home games, but I've never consistently had a season ticket where I'd go to every single home game. And just that in itself, I'm just so excited. I mean, if you haven't yet, watch the Fan Zone podcast that I've literally just uploaded a couple of days ago with Farah, who honestly, she's just an inspiration. I spoke all about her being a role model, but we spoke so much because obviously she's the chair of the supporters club. She handles all the season tickets, and I spoke to her about how it gave me goosebumps to know that we can have season tickets. There's that demand, because when I was 10 years old, going back a decade, we didn't have that. Like, you sort of just turn up. My dad would pay £2.50 for me. He'd pay £5 for himself and £2.50 for a programme. And now I've got a season ticket. It makes me so proud of the journey that the game's come from and is now, but also I'm excited to see where it will be in the future. So I just want to just firstly start off by saying that, because I do feel like returning to the Emirates is always a big occasion, but especially this time because it made not only me happy, but little Luce was very happy to be in that stand. It was such a nice day, such a hot day. The attendance was just under 40,000, so it's so good to see pretty much all of the seats filled apart from the very top tier. So yeah, it was just a very good day out, so I feel very lucky that I got to be actually at the Emirates to see the return of the WSL for Arsenal. Now, before I get too soppy, but honestly, it was such a wholesome day with like all my new besties that I've made over the last couple of seasons at Arsenal. It was just a really good vibe being surrounded by Arsenal fans as well. I'm going to say my 3 learnings. The first thing, Olivia Smith is worth every single penny. Like, no one else can tell me otherwise. And I don't think she needed to touch the ball apart from that goal. I think that goal sold it to me. I was like, yeah, fair. Because I think when you're a young player, she's 21 years old. Yes, she's played in the Liverpool squad, so obviously she's been in the WSL the last couple of seasons. So she's got that experience. But when you're just 21 years old and you've got a massive record-breaking fee of £1 million on you, I know obviously that has been broken since, with obviously Alyssa Thompson going to Chelsea, and then we had Grace Giro literally last minute go to London City Lionesses as well for even more, like 1.43 million, I think it was. But at that time, when Olivia Smith was signed, she was breaking the record with just the amount she came for. So I think there was so much pressure on her shoulders, but she proved exactly why she should be in that Arsenal squad. I mean, I already knew when she was going into this game. We've seen her in the friendly slot into that squad and how quick she is, the speed she brings and everything like that. And we've seen her play for Liverpool before. But honestly, that goal sold it to me. Like, it literally, I was just sort of like looking around the pitch, like the ball was travelling up. She was so far out of the box. I was like, okay, cool. Like, not thinking too much of it. Suddenly she took a touch and just rocket launched it straight into the net. I just remember being like, what? Like, my face went so wide. I was like, did this actually go in? And it's not even just me you need to hear that from. Like, Laura will say to you, my friend Laura that I was there with, she was sat a couple seats away from me, and we just looked at each other and we were like, what? Like, so yeah, she'll vouch for me that how shocked I was. But like, also, I was so shocked because I was like, wow, a player of this age to have this confidence, which is something that I feel like a few other players on the pitch could have had, because you could tell they were a little bit cautious going up, or they made a mistake so they didn't want to remake that mistake again, so then they do the opposite move. Whereas for Olivia Smith, no fear, completely fearless, struck that ball straight into the net. So honestly, for that reason, she's the first key takeaway I took from this game, and I'm just very excited that hopefully we'll see more goals like that in the future. The second thing is slightly slightly a negative point, and this is why I've sort of done, the sandwich effect, where you start with a positive thing or a compliment, you say the truth of the negative thing, and then you end with a positive. I was like, we don't want to end or start on a low, so I'm just going to add a little bit in here. But we can't start how we started against the likes of City, Chelsea, United, because those are teams that will completely then dominate us. I mean, just looking to last season, this was still under Edeval. I think it was either his last game or one of his last games against Chelsea. I just remember they got an early goal, and because of that, second half, we were definitely the better team. But because they got that early goal, and it is Chelsea, they just dominated and ended up getting all 3 points. I think we were lucky because it was the first game of the season. You could tell that players were just slowly finding their feet, getting used to it. Like, things were a bit messy. It wasn't the highest level of football I've ever seen in my life. But towards the 90th minute, like, second half was definitely up there, whereas the first 20-30 minutes I just felt like we were a little bit lost in the game, and it took a 21-year-old to find the net from distance, like a very far distance, for us to be like, wake up, like we need to do this. So yeah, I do just think slightly negative point, but like we can't be playing like that. We need to, in future games, start with intent and start with the intention of we need to get a goal in the first 20 minutes or we're going to lose. We got lucky, yes, they're a newly promoted side, but they have amazing signings so that we couldn't underestimate them whatsoever. I mean, I've mentioned that, and I think everyone I've spoken to mentioned that going into the game, but I'm just really happy that we ended up coming out on a high, and I think there's so many positives from it, but I'm just hoping that going even against West Ham, who obviously lost at the weekend against Spurs, like even teams like that, we need to make sure that we're going in with the intention that we're going to win. But the third point, which is obviously a positive point because it is a 4-1 win. I don't know how I've managed to find a slight negative, but I feel like it's kind of a realistic approach to it because it is the first game. But the third thing that I took away from this game is that our squad depth is crazy. I mean, I mentioned earlier that in the warm-up poll that obviously Katie Reid started, which had big boots to fill, but I feel like she was very strong at the back. And she recovered from any mistakes she made, which was really good to see. And I feel like when you're trying to fill the boots of Leah Williamson, who we know is a very good defender on her day, it is kind of quite daunting, especially at such a young age. I think Katie Reid's only, 18 or something, 18, 19. So to be able to do it at such a young age, so good that we can rely on our backup options, if that makes sense, to start the game. Also, we had players that came on the pitch that normally would start. We had Beth Mead. So many rumours that Beth Mead should have gone to London City Lionesses, should have taken a massive fee for her, and even in my head I was thinking I don't want Beth Mead to leave. She is Arsenal through and through, but is this a better option for her because will she actually get minutes? I think she's proved exactly why she deserves those minutes, because this game, I mean, from where I was sat I could see Beth Mead literally going down the right in the second half and crossing it in. She'd cut back, she'd cross in. Yes, she made a few little errors, but I think we were like probably 2-1 at that point up, so had a bit of leeway basically, and obviously she contributed to a couple of the goals, and she just contributed to the system as a whole leading up to it. I think also we had Mornham come on the pitch, who obviously proved to be amazing at creating goals, and then I'm just trying to think, I feel like there's so many options. What else have I written here? Obviously Caitlin Ford came on, which was actually shocking because I thought Olivia Smith would be the sub and Caitlin Ford would start because of the season Caitlin Ford had last year, but once again, this is why Slegers is the manager and not me, because she put Olivia Smith on first, scored that rocket goal, got subbed, Caitlin Ford came on, like she wanted to score a rocket goal. Like she's just so strong and so forward thinking that it's just so exciting that we could sub all these players. I think even Fox is a player that I don't think gets enough recognition for her control, her creativity. Like even on the ball, you'd think she's going one way and she steps over it and goes the other way. Like I think she's just, when I was really like player watching for like 10 minutes, just her movements, I think she's very, very intriguing to watch. I do think one player though, looking at squad depth, that we haven't seen a lot from, who I think with Leah Vulti's exit, which was obviously confirmed just as I posted last week's episode, which was obviously a really big loss because she was 7 years at the club. I thought now because of that gap more so in the midfield space, we might see Kyra Cooney-Cross pop up more and get more minutes, but it didn't happen, and I know a few fans have been a little bit annoyed by this, which, yeah, I still don't really understand. I'd like to see her get some more minutes. I'm hoping maybe against West Ham, now we've sort of eased into the season with that first game, maybe we might see her come on. I'd love to see her subbed on because I do think she deserves those minutes. And if she doesn't really get many minutes this season, I reckon she could then either go out on loan or go to a different club, because I don't think it's fair on her when she has the ability to play. And she's not injured or anything, so it's not like she's can't play. She can play, she's just not being picked. So I do think, with our squad depth, we are very lucky with that. So that basically was a look at the first game. And I did, just looking back at my notes, I did predict it to be a 2-0 win. We didn't quite keep that clean sheet. If anything, first 16, 17 minutes, I thought maybe it could be 2-0 the other way. But I'm just very happy that I got that prediction wrong, and we ended up exceeding how many goals I thought would be able to score. And I just think all the players up top, it was just so good to see. I could actually waffle forever about it. But I'm just very, very impressed. But whilst obviously the women were getting those 3 points, very deserved, climbing towards the top of the table. I mean, they were top of the table after the game, but then obviously United are now fully top, so we're second. Whilst that was happening with the women's side, the men obviously have been on that international break. So I'm just going to talk through a few things that happened in that in just a moment. Okay, so I just saw on my camera, I was like, I think she's about to switch off. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there was a little like, oop. And now I've just brought it to attention for anyone listening on Spotify as well, so good job from me. Anyways, the men's game, so we had 16 gunners that were at the World Cup qualifiers, which is a lot of players, too many for me to talk about every single game that's happened, but I just wanted to pick up basically a few key players. Marino, I think that is one, he stood out. Obviously, he's been playing for Spain. He got a goal in their first game, and then he got a hat-trick against Turkey in the second game. And I just think him getting on the score sheet so many times is so uplifting and so hopeful, and just all of those words, like all the synonyms for hope, basically, because I think for Arsenal fans, we thought, right, we've brought in Gyökeres. What happens if Gyökeres gets injured? Which is how you don't want to think. It's quite a pessimistic way of looking at it, but it's quite, you've got to be realistic sometimes that, as I've said with the women's game, squad depth is so important when you have those players out. And I think the fact that Marino is able to perform for his country and score goals like that, it is really encouraging that when he comes to Arsenal next week, when they're all back at the Emirates, back in North London, it's really good that, he's been able to find the net a few times. So Arteta, if you want to push him up front again like you did quite a few times last season, he's a good backup, especially when you've got the likes of Havertz out still as well. I think also Zubimendi, he produced an assist for one of those Spain games, which is really encouraging to see. For me, the players that stand out, obviously Rice, Madueke, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Eze, because obviously they were in England's squad, which, as someone who supports England, I feel like Tuchel's squad has been quite controversial. I think a lot of people are demanding for Southgate to get back, but as this is obviously not a Southgate, England, Tuchel, whatever podcast, I'm not going to talk about my views on that for the moment. I do think that obviously we should be thrashing the clubs we are playing. Like, we should be proving, or at least creating the goals, or at least making creative decisions, taking those risks. And that's something that we did see from Rice. He obviously scored. Madueke got an assist as well. So it's great that we're seeing our gunners perform for England as well. But I do think going forwards, like, if you compare the results that Southgate got and Tuchel got, Southgate did perform better, but I feel like it's the same with any manager. You always wish for someone else until you've got them, and then you're like, kind of wish I had the other manager, which I think is what a lot of Arsenal fans will be doing with Arteta, because I don't want Arteta to leave. This is really random going off on one, but I don't want Arteta to leave. I do think we need silverware. I've said already the requirements. I think we need silverware, at least a couple trophies, or at least proving that we're fair in competitions. We don't need to win the Premier League to keep Arteta, I don't think, because in my head, who would we get in? And we've seen with so many other clubs, they get rid of their manager, and then who are they getting in? Someone else who just is going to do exactly the same thing. So I think there's got to be more to change. But also going back to the international break off, that's a little tangent. Gyökeres also got an assist for Sweden. So there's a lot of games going on. This podcast is obviously going out Tuesday, so we do have some more games happening tonight and also Wednesday night as well, so tomorrow night. So there's quite a few games, but then they'll be back in action obviously at the weekend, which is what I'll get into in the predictions part of this video, which is in probably a couple minutes, because all that's left for me to talk about, I feel like this has been mostly just focused on the football itself, but the only other thing to talk about is obviously the signings, the conclusion of all the signings, because when I posted the video last week, the Premier League transfer window was completely closed. I thought, obviously, Nketiah I didn't actually mention. I put it in the title of my video because as soon as I posted it, then he got announced, and I was like, oh, I've messed up there because I didn't actually mention it in the video, so I thought I'd mention him now. But obviously a great new addition. And Leah Vorti is pretty much the only announcement that has come out of Arsenal Football Club in the last week, obviously to WSL, because she has now left. And I mentioned it before, such a big loss because that was 7 years at the club. I think 183 appearances, I want to say. And I just feel like what she's done for the club, yeah, it's a lot. And I think at the Emirates, I saw obviously everyone saying thank you to her. She was on the pitch. And it is really sad when you see a player that has been with you for so long, with your club. You see all the other players, both current players like Lee Williamson, come out and speak about her, but also former players as well, like Jen Beattie, have also spoken about her openly on social media, and what a big loss it is basically for Arsenal. So I think, yeah, it's a lot when a player leaves. I think I'm going to have a similar reaction, probably more emotional when Kim Little goes, because it inevitably will be in probably the summer, or maybe even the summer after, but I reckon it'll probably be this year. So I think, yeah, we're getting to that stage now where players that are embedded and core key players of the football club are slowly leaving, which is obviously really sad. And yeah, I don't know. I think it is just crazy that her last game was obviously the Champions League final, which she won. So in a way, I don't think you could have ended your Arsenal career on a better note. That is what Arsenal wanted for so many years since we last won in 2007. So I think to be able to do it 18 years later, that is pretty incredible, pretty impressive place to be in, because at the start of her career at Arsenal, she obviously would have been winning a lot of trophies, then a bit of a drought with certain trophies, and then to end it like that, and obviously the community, the friendship she's made, I think, yeah, she's leaving behind a legacy for sure. So obviously that was sad to see, but I think apart from that, there actually wasn't any more signings. I think it was just the other clubs that were very busy, a lot of rumours. Obviously we had players, Grace Clinton, Jess Park switching places. We had last minute Chelsea signings, last minute London City Lionesses signings. I feel like there was a lot, but obviously this is the Arsenal Humans podcast, so won't talk about any of that. But yeah, there was a lot of mad signings going on last minute, but for us, that's pretty much it with the window, and now we can just focus purely on the season, which I'm very excited about, because as I was saying with the warm-up poll, I just love that we've got our starting 11, but it could change each week, and these are the conversations I love having, because at least we know that the players are permanent, whereas obviously in the window it's always like, oh, are we getting this player, are we not? So at least we're now calm. I think I've spoken enough about the games and everything that's been happening, so I think it's just time to get onto the predictions, which is the first time this season I can predict both the WSL and the Premier League game, which is happening this weekend, so I'm very excited about that. So let's get into that now. Can't believe we're already at the end of the episode, but I mean, you know, time flies when you're having fun, and especially when you're talking about the WSL returning, which is the first game that I'm going to look into, because Arsenal are playing West Ham on Friday, obviously in the WSL. It is a 7:30 kickoff, and it is an away game. Otherwise, I would have loved to have been there, but I've got to work, so I won't actually be there, which I'm gutted about, but I'll be watching all the highlights, and to be fair, because I am at work, hopefully we'll have it on Sky on one of the screens, so I'll be able to see it still. I'm going to go in straight away with my prediction. I think we're going to win 5-2, and this is such a random prediction, a bit rogue, because obviously 5 goals is a lot, and to expect us to concede 2 goals, but I just have a feeling, I don't know why, this is actually just not even based off tactics or anything, but I think 5 goals is very much achievable, because if we're able to put 4 past London City Lionesses, and I've been talking a lot about all our attacking options we've got and how they all work together, it all complement each other, I reckon all of our attacking players will be able to get at least an assist or a goal. So I do think that 5 is achievable. Letting in 2, I don't know. I feel like West Ham have had a quieter window, but they do have some key players as well that I think could find the net. I hope it's not this. I hope we can keep a clean sheet, but obviously I predicted a clean sheet last week and that didn't happen. So you never know, but I just feel like, yeah, Friday night vibes, under the lights, 5-2, why not? So that was my score prediction. Moving on to the game the day after is the men's in the Premier League. Obviously, it's Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. So it's a home game, 12:30 kickoff, bang on midday. And I'm going to go with a 3-0 win. I think, obviously, the men are coming off the back of an international break, but the last game they played before that, I hate to remind all of us, but we obviously did lose 1-0 to Liverpool, and I think we need to have a higher scoring game. We can't just be winning a 1-0 against Forest. I expect us to win. I think if we lose, that'll be shocking, embarrassing, that won't align with the goals we've set out for ourselves. I think losing to Liverpool, completely different game when both sides, it was quite a boring game in itself because no sides were too confident. We shied away from the ball and everything like that. Whereas I think actually this game against Forest, we need to come back and be like, no, we're here. Like, the title's not written off already. Like, we're literally what game week? This is game week 4, I think, for the men's. So I'm like, yeah, we've got this. So I think 3 goals would be good just to make a little bit of a statement, keep that clean sheet for David Raya, obviously, and then have a few different goal scorers would be great as well. So I'm feeling confident. I'm predicting 2 wins for Arsenal, and I feel like this is a common theme. If you're new here, thanks for joining me, but this is definitely a common vibe you're going to notice week on, week out, because last season, I think I never predicted us to lose, obviously, because why would you do that about your own team? But especially not when you're Arsenal. Like, you're not going to predict you're going to lose, because the likelihood of that happening, not to sound too arrogant or confident, but it is quite minimal. Whereas I think a draw, sometimes I've had to predict, like I did obviously with Liverpool, and that didn't really go my way. But yeah, I'm feeling confident, so I'm feeling good. I'm actually really excited now that both the men and women's game is back, because there's just even more to talk about, even more things. So next week I'm going to have 3 takeaways from both games. I'm very, very excited about that. But yeah, that is the end of this episode. I hope you're all good. I feel like I'm doing the intro again. Welcome back. I hope you're good. But I hope you're all good, having a good week, and just as excited about the next week as I am. Obviously, I'll be doing a podcast episode next Tuesday to reflect on these games, and I also will have my fan zone next Friday. So not this Friday, not in a few days' time, but next Friday, with a guest that I'm very excited. I feel like a lot of you Arsenal fans will know of him. So I'm very excited to release that video then. So yeah. Join me then. Join me next Tuesday. Join me next Friday. Join me whenever you want to join me. But if you did enjoy watching this and you want to see more content and you haven't already, please subscribe, because I just want to grow this community as much as I can, because I really enjoy doing these videos. So I hope you guys enjoy them too. If you do, give me a thumbs up. Comment down below anything based off what I've said in this video or anything about Arsenal as a whole. I'd love to hear from you guys, and I reply to as many of them as I can. And also, if you are listening on Spotify, please follow me, and you can actually also comment over there as well. So yeah. The chat's always open. I'm always here to chat about Arsenal. But yeah, have a good week, and I'll see you next week.